Hi, welcome back. This here is episode 55 of 67, so I'm approaching the end of my crazy year of playing retro games. Having said that, there's a whole lot of heavy-duty role-playing coming up, and that takes time. I've got my eyes set on the prize, so here we go for Illusion of Gaia.
I got my copy on eBay about a year ago. I ended up getting the American version for a very simple reason. It was cheaper than getting the local version. Go figure.
Check this out, the instruction manual has a play guide for the entire game. What the? I'm just imagining all the trees that died so stupid people wouldn't get stuck. It's not really very specific, it doesn't tell you everything, but still I'm amazed that that's all in here. Oh well. Into the ugly American Super Nintendo it goes, and away we go. Okay, here we have the middle game in the unofficial RPG trilogy by Quintet. In PAL regions it was renamed Illusion of Time, probably to make it sound less foreign, but I'm really not sure of the reason. The first thing I noticed is that the story is definitely more defined than Soul Blazer. You are a boy called Will, living a carefree life in a coastal town, and you and your friends while the days away in a secret cave playing card games. Everything changes though with the arrival of a snooty runaway princess and her pet pig. Now, spoilers ahead for the record, I was absolutely horrified in an event that happens fairly late in the game. The cute little pet piglet, Hamlet, travels the world to find his mistress, the Princess Cara, and when the two are reunited there's much rejoicing. Then within a few minutes the party's captured by hungry cannibals, so poor little Hamlet throws himself onto the fire so that the natives can have roast pork dinner and free the humans. Oh! And Peter thought Mario 3D Land was bad. Even though the rest of the tale is fairly light, there are some heavy themes hidden in here. Right at the start of the game, you enter your friend's house to find his parents fighting and talking about splitting up. Anyway, after a bit of storytelling stuff and getting thrown in a dungeon by the king, you get to sample the battle system. And it's surprisingly pretty good. Will moves nice and fast. Oh, such a nice change from slow Ali last week in the story of Thor. And just like in Soul Blazer, every time you clear a room of monsters you get some kind of level up, be it health, strength or defense. I made sure I didn't leave a single enemy alive. Eventually, poor Will gets caught up in a grand adventure that goes to all kinds of strange places. At one point you and the princess are stranded on a raft for weeks, and when you wake up you begin a mission to liberate a town from slave traders. It's not long before you discover how to transform into the powerful Dark Knight known as Freedan. He's pretty strong, and he learns different abilities to the vanilla Will, and throughout the dungeons you'll have to switch back and forth between them to progress. Then right at the end of the game you get a third form to transform into, the super powerful Shadow who can melt through solid floors. Sweet. It's weird how he only comes into it in the last couple of hours though. I know it was only 1995, but man, the translation seems a bit rough. Past and present tenses get mixed around like you wouldn't believe, and many of the sentences of dialogue make little to no sense at all. In fact, after watching the ending of the game, there's really not much that makes any sense. Even so, the story and characters still managed to make a mild impression. It's certainly not going to challenge Final Fantasy VI for storytelling, but it gets the job done. I just get the impression that the translation was probably done back in Japan. It's a bit strange, even though you accumulate a group of party members that follow you around on your adventure, they never actually really help you out. Whenever you reach a dungeon, Will goes it solo while the others just sit back and relax at the local village. Oh well, I suppose he is the only one who could transform. There were definitely moments where I was reminded of Soul Blazer, but it's definitely a better game. It's just more polished and less repetitive. The story is a more traditional RPG tale, but it's interesting that Quintet decided to make it completely linear to the Final Fantasy 13th degree. Once you move to the next location, you never turn back. In fact, most of it is fairly RPG light. There's no money whatsoever, unless you count the random red jewels that you find. No armour, no weapons, and a very limited little inventory. I also can't figure out whether Quintet were trying to make this set in the real world or a fantasy one. Sometimes you find places like the Great Wall of China, and the characters talk about ancient Incan societies and stuff. It seems a bit weird in what's otherwise a very fantasy-based game. Towards the end of the game, it's shown that this is, yes, very definitely Earth, but I just can't figure it out. Of course, the follow-up game, Terranigma, was most definitely set on planet Earth, but I've still got a few more weeks until I tackle that game. Back to the task at hand. The graphics are decent, but the dungeon areas can get pretty repetitive looking. The characters all look pretty nice, and there's lots of nice little details like Will's hair blowing in the wind. So, what is the Gaia from the title? Well, Gaia is the goddess who oversees Will's adventures. In functionality terms, she's a save point. Not sure what her illusion is. The illusion of time title makes even less sense though. There's no time travel or anything. Oh well. If there's one thing I can take away from playing mediocre RPGs this year is that I can now really appreciate a good one. And this is definitely a good one. Sure, the translation's pretty abysmal, and I'll be honest, Terranigma is much better, but this is still one of the highest quality roleplayers in the 16-bit generation. Good stuff. Coming up next week, the RPG-a-thon continues, this time with a touch of insanity. See you then. Peaceus Altius.